Imagine you're trying to compare two absolutely massive groups of people. You want to know for sure if one group is truly different from the other. But here's the catch. You don't have all the information. You don't know their population standard deviations, and obviously measuring every single person on Earth is completely impossible. So how do you actually find the truth? This isn't just a math problem, it's a real-world statistical dilemma. Think about it. How do we scientifically prove if boys aged 7 to 11 play more sports than girls of the exact same age? Or how can a college professor definitively prove if face-to-face classes actually lead to better exam scores than online ones? We can't test every single student in the world. We can only take small samples. But how do we compare those samples accurately when there is just so much unknown variation floating around?
Well, you're in the right place. By the end of this explainer, you are going to understand the core concept behind comparing two unknown populations, the exact methodology we use to solve this problem, and how to apply it step by step to real-life examples. We are going to make the complex math completely accessible.
To really grasp this concept, let's use a bit of an analogy. Picture two massive pots of soup simmering on a stove, pot 1 and pot 2. You didn't make them, and you have absolutely no idea what the exact ingredients or ratios are in either pot. In statistics, those unknown, mysterious ingredients are your population standard deviations. Now, you want to know if the two soups taste different. You obviously can't drink both entire pots. Instead, you take a small spoonful, a sample from each. Comparing those two tiny spoonfuls, while accounting for the fact that you have no clue what the full recipe of either pot actually is exactly what we are doing today. In formal academic terms, testing our metaphorical soup is called the Aspin-Welch t-test. It's a statistical test specifically designed to compare two independent population means when the population standard deviations are both unknown and possibly unequal. And let me tell you, it's an incredibly powerful tool because, let's be honest, in the real world, we almost never know the true population standard deviation. Okay, let's break down the Aspin-Welch t-test step by step. Don't worry about memorizing massive equations here, just focus on the underlying logic. The process really just breaks down into 3 logical steps. First up, we take the difference of our sample means. Simple enough, right? But wait, very different means can happen just by pure chance if there's a lot of wild variation in our samples. So step 2 is absolutely crucial. To account for that variation, we divide that difference by the standard error to standardize it. This essentially estimates the overall variation using our 2 sample standard deviations. Finally, step 3. This calculation hands us a t-score test statistic. Now, finding the exact degrees of freedom for this t-score involves a pretty ugly, complicated fraction. But here's the great news. Your computer or graphing calculator handles that messy calculation for you instantly. Now, pause for a second. Right about here is where a very common, very tricky student question usually pops up. If you've studied other statistical tests before, you might be thinking, wait, do we pool the sample variances together since we are comparing them? The answer is a massive, definitive no. Do not pool the variances. This is a super common trap. Because we are explicitly assuming the population's standard deviations are completely unknown and potentially unequal, pulling them together would totally distort our results. You have to keep them separate in your software or calculator settings. All right, let's make this super concrete by solving a real example with actual data. Let's look at a study investigating whether boys and girls aged 7 to 11 spend the same amount of time playing sports each day. Check out the sample sizes here. We have a sample of 9 girls who play an average of 2.0 hours a day with a standard deviation of 0.866. Then we have a sample of 16 boys who play an average of 3.2 hours a day with a standard deviation of 1.00. Notice that our sample sizes are different. And way more importantly, our true population standard deviations for all girls and all boys are completely unknown. This right here is the absolute perfect setup for the Aspin-Welch t-test. So we plug these numbers into our calculator using the 2-sample t-test function and making absolutely sure pooled is set to no. And boom, it gives us a p-value of 0.0054. It also lets us know our degrees of freedom are sitting at about 18.8. Okay, so what does this number actually tell us? Well, in statistics, if our significance level, or alpha, which is usually set at 0.05, is greater than our p-value, we reject the null hypothesis. And 0.05 is much bigger than 0.0054. Therefore, we confidently reject the idea that the two groups play the exact same amount of sports. In plain English, the sample data gives us sufficient evidence to conclude that the mean number of hours boys and girls play sports is statistically different. So, we found a statistical difference. Awesome. But let's pause and ask a really critical question here.
We know the means are different, but how much does this difference actually matter in the real world? Like, is it a tiny, trivial difference or a massive, life-changing one? A p-value tells us a difference exists, for sure, but it doesn't tell us the actual size or impact of that difference.
To figure that out, we need to talk about measuring effect size, specifically using something called Cohen's d. Named after the US statistician Jacob Cohen, Cohen's d is a brilliantly simple measure of effect size based on the differences between two means. It reveals the relative strength of the differences between the populations. To find it, you divide the difference between the two sample means by the pooled standard deviation. Now, I know what you're thinking. I literally just told you not to pool variances for the t-test itself, and that's still true. But for this specific effect size measurement after the fact, Cohen's formula actually requires it in order to standardize the scale of the difference. Once you calculate Cohen's d, you just compare it to a standard universal scale. A value of 0.2 is considered a small effect, 0.5 is a medium effect, and 0.8 or higher, that is considered a large effect size. This gives us a really handy benchmark to actually understand what our data is shouting at us. Let's see this in action. Let's look at another real study. A community college professor wanted to know if final exam scores differed between his online statistics class and his face-to-face class. He randomly selected 30 final exams from each format. Running the Aspin-Welch t-test, he found an incredibly tiny p-value of 0.0011. He proved the face-to-face class scored higher. But again, did the format of the class make a huge difference or just a really slight one? When we take the raw data from those exam scores and calculate Cohen's d, the result is 0.834. Now think back to that scale we looked at just a few seconds ago. Where exactly does 0.834 fall on Jacob Cohen's scale? Because 0.834 is greater than 0.8, this brilliantly illustrates a large effect size. This means that the difference in scores wasn't just some statistical technicality that barely matters. The class format, being face-to-face versus online, had a highly significant practical and substantial impact on how well the students actually learned and performed on their final exams. All right, before we completely wrap up this explainer, let's do a quick final review to make sure these key points firmly stick with you. Number 1. When you need to compare two distinct populations and you do not know their standard deviations, the Aspin-Welch t-test is your go-to tool. Number 2. When running the test, remember the golden rule. Do not pool the variances. And finally, number 3. Once you find a statistical difference, always use Cohen's d to measure the real-world effect size. This is exactly how you transform raw, boring data into actual, meaningful real-world insights. So, we now know exactly how to handle populations when we are missing a ton of information. But consider this for a second. What happens in those rare, perfect scenarios where we actually do know the true population standard deviations right from the very beginning? How does all this math change then? Well, that entirely different framework is exactly what we are going to uncover in our